Hello everybody, welcome back to the Arden 8-port build diary, otherwise known as Bumblebee. If you haven't seen any of the other episodes of this story so far, then you need to follow the link that I'm going to put somewhere above my head to catch you up to date. Right, big update is that this weekend we finally did some mileage on the car. I did about 30 miles on Saturday, just doing some mapping, and Sunday we did about 140. I went to a show called Bella Auto over at Corbridge, which is really excellent show, really hot and sunny, and I've got sunburnt again. Usual story, take the suntan cream and forget about it in the car somewhere and get burnt. But how did the car go? That's the important question. That's what everybody's been asking me on Facebook. How quick was it? Blah blah blah. Well, it does feel quick at slow speed, if that makes sense, you know, from acceleration out of the junctions and stuff. But at the moment the fueling falls flat on its ass at about 3750 to 4000 RPM. It goes weak. I've ended up adding loads of fuel into the map, and I'll show you a screenshot next of the map added into this video, and it just goes sheer. As soon as the boost comes in, it goes sheer, just up there for fuel. Issues. Let's have a look. Think. Well, tonight I want to do a fluids check, so that's oil, water. I want to check the plugs tonight, and inspect for leaks and anything that's loose. So spanner check on the engine bay tonight. It did use a little bit of oil on the run across, but it's hard to, well, it didn't, according to the cars that were behind me, it wasn't burning it out of the back. There's a few spatters on the exhaust, but I wasn't sure if that was the mixture being rich at certain points, and it was fuel and oil and shite that was on the back of the car. But it wasn't just like black like it was on the previous engine. So I need to look at that. Right, so tonight I want to check the fluids, like I just said. I want to check the oil, the water, I want to check the spark plugs. Other things I need to do is the boost gauge doesn't work, it reads minus. I need to check the wires on the plenum chamber underneath. I'm thinking that perhaps when I depinned it to put it through the bulkhead, I haven't put it back in the right order. I'll have to check the manual, see what it says. What else? Oh, back brakes. They need a severe amount of adjustment. Check the front brakes, see what life I've got left on the pads, and just go from there. And it needs a good clean because it got dirty yesterday. Just usual post first run out checks, and go over various things to make sure everything's working as it should be. There's definitely oil in the water though. The only thing is I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know if it's old oil that's in the block and it's in the block's waterways and it's getting into the system there, or it's fresh oil that's getting into the waterways some other way. But yeah, I'm just going to work around it. Successful first trip out, as I said. Didn't break down, didn't throw a belt off. Ran alright fueling wise at the revs we were doing, which is like cruising basically. But when you boot it, give it big licks, it picks up. You can feel the kicking in the back as the boost comes in. But towards higher revs, like I said, 4,000 plus, in that sort of area, it goes really weak. So it needs some more work. But hopeful it's going to be alright. Fingers crossed. Right, so I've got the plugs out, and the numbering is 1 to 4, with number 1 being this one here. Let's move the light. And hopefully, if it keeps in focus, you can see they aren't a bad colour. A little bit rich around the extremes, but the electrode in the middle is a fairly nice brown sort of colour. Try and keep it in focus. So yeah, that's a pretty good result really. Obviously it got a little bit rich with just moving it about in the yard and backing it in, and then moving it back into the garage and stuff. But I think that's a fairly healthy set of plugs, considering 3 of these are really old and were on the previous engine, and it's only the number 3 that's a new plug, because that was on ones that drowned when I first tried to start it. But yeah, it's not looking too bad at all, that. Okay, so the oil was absolutely spot on. It hasn't used anything, well, not that I can tell from when I put some in before I left. Plugs are re-gapped, because 3 of them were, 1 of them wasn't. Next I'm going to try and check the contents of the catch tank. I don't want to have to take it out because it's not a fun job. So I'm going to try and do by taking the pipe off and using the tie wrap as a dipstick down into it. I suppose the best way would be getting one of those new ones that has a dipstick integrated with it, but that might mean making new mountings and stuff, and I can't be arsed with that. Okay, dipstick method worked. There's only maybe, what was that, 10 mil of oil and water in the bottom of the catch tank, so I'm just going to leave it as it is, because as I said, pain in the ass doing it with it. Okay, so I'd grill off and have a look under the plenum chamber to see what I've done wrong. This, if it'll focus on it, is the connector to the boost gauge, and at the moment I'm thinking I've got the red and the black wire the wrong way around, which is why it's reading negative values. So I'm going to swap them, and then next time I fire it up, see if it makes any difference. The other thing I'm going to change is, if I just zoom out, over here I've got your dump valve, and I'm going to change the spring in that to a smaller one. I'm not entirely sure if it's behaving as it should do, so I'm just going to experiment with a looser spring just to see if it feels or sounds any different, because I don't know how it's supposed to behave exactly. So I'll swap those wires around there first, and then do the spring in the dump valve. Back again, another quick Thursday night update. What I decided to do last night was a job I've been putting off because it's a nasty job to do, which is to change the fan. And that is the one that came out. And if you can see that, that bright bit of yellow in the back of there, that's the new fan. It's all buttoned up, just the belt to correctly align and tension, and then a water pipe to go on the back, and then just a few bits and pieces to tighten up. But that's going to be tonight's job. But before I crack on with that, I thought I'd just, while I was editing the footage last night, I realised I hadn't shown you the fuel map. And since I've been out and done one night of extra mapping, it might look a bit better and make more sense. I'll show you it now before Sunday's run out to the Classic Car Show at Grasmere, which will be another tuning session. Right, as promised, this is the DTA S-Win software with my current edited map loaded up. And what we've got here, this is the field map, and you've got throttle positions along the top and then revs down the side all the way from 500 to 7.5. Now what you tend to do is drive about and then get a correction map, which is these figures on this spreadsheet. It gives you an air fuel history, which is all these readings here. You can see it varies between 12s, which is a little bit rich, and then some of the ones over here are 17, nearly 16, i.e. very weak. And it also tells you on this next screen that I've saved how many times it's got a reading for the air fuel history in each cell, so you can tell which ones are the most reliable figures, and you can tell from those numbers there that's where your majority of your driving is. Even cruising along at 60 mile an hour, 70 mile an hour on the motorways and stuff, you're only like at 16% throttle. This top end, that's only absolute foot to the board stuff. It's very, very rare that you get into this upper part of the map, which is why there's not so many figures in it, which is what's caused it to be quite difficult to map. And then on the final screen, let's go back to it, gone too far. This screen shows you the difference between what your target field map is and what the readings are. It's averaged out in percentage wise. So the ones with brackets around them are weak. So that one, for example, is 26% weak, and there's a lot of 4s and 5s, and then these ones are a little bit rich. But if you're in 1 or 2%, that'll do for now to get it up and running. And then over here is the graph, which you can rotate and twiddle round. I'll just do that. See how it rotates. Well, as it happens, the main part that I've been able to map on the road is only up to around about 4,000 RPM axis, which is this line here, and you can see it going up there with a little trace telling you what throttle position you're at, what the value is and what revs you are. So the maximum I've been able to map is in this sort of area there, and lots in this area down in here. So 16% throttle, between say 2,500 and 4, that's your main cruising. And then when it comes really on boost and you can start to really kick in and the engine starts to move a lot of air, it obviously needs a lot more fuel to keep your air fuel mixtures right. Forget about timing for now, I can't easily monitor that and tweak that, but I can get the fuel in there or thereabouts before it goes for a rolling road. So that's all these figures in here, which are the figures that it's got from those averages and then the correction values, and providing it's gone through the cell plenty of times, and I've applied those corrections to the main fuel map, and that gives me these figures here. And what I've done is, because I could only get readings up into this sort of range, because you run out of road, etc, etc, and it's very hard to keep high throttle, high revs on a road and be legal and safe and all that sort of stuff. Once it got past here, there was a massive drop off in the fuel values. This is like a value of getting on for 9, 10 arbitrary values, but down here is, you know, your 1s and 2s and stuff. And then the map used to just dive, so it used to be like a massive great peak here and then falling off a cliff. So what I've done was I put in an arbitrary value up here, like 15 or something, yeah, 15 for maximum revs, maximum load, and then I've just smoothed it out in the hope that it'll at least run when it gets up into this higher rev range, and then I'll be able to gather some correction figures rather, and then apply those to the map to get the actual figure that it should be. and from there, once you got one or two in here, you can start to tweak it and smooth it so it actually runs. But as before, it would just rev up to about 4,250, and then this map would just drop down because the figures were so low, and you'd run out of fuel, your mixture would go weak, and you would have to stop. So what I'm hoping is that by bumping up all these fuel values in this upper part of the map, that enables me to finish, or not finish, but get a bit more road tuning done before I get the dyno session booked, which is the only way of properly getting it tuned up. But for the moment, that's where we're at. It's looking a lot better than it did. It looked like a map of the Himalayas before, with lots of jagged up and downs, but now it's started to smooth out. And as I say, I've got hundreds and hundreds of readings in this area down here, which is where you do your main part of your driving. So it's not a million miles off for when it goes to the rolling road. When you do have it rolling roaded, you will find that it's very hard to keep a constant load on the rollers at these very light throttle positions. It's just really hard for the machine to keep it at that steady state. That's where your repeated road driving really, pays its dues. You get this part sort of right, and then up here is where you get it set on the rolling road, and then you do some power runs, as you've seen on my previous videos, to get these figures up here, which is maximum throttle leading up to maximum revs. And then it's just a case of smoothing it all out and then checking it, because you don't want to sit on the rollers with your car at 6,000 RPM at 50, 60, 80% throttle, because it absolutely will kill your car. So that's why I do all this road tuning first, to make it quicker and easier to do the dyno session, which will hopefully be in maybe 2 or 3 weeks time.